So this will be a video on how to play Magic the Gathering for Kayla, or anyone else who wants to learn, because it is a fantastic game and I absolutely adore it. The basics of it: you have a deck of cards and you pit your deck of cards against someone else's deck and you try and win. You have 20 life each that you start out with, but you can gain more, and if you get down to 0 you lose, and if you run out of cards in your deck then you lose as well. The smaller the deck, the more powerful it is. The smallest deck you could have is a 40 card deck, and generally the ones that you can buy between $15 and $25, depending on where you buy them from, are going to be 60 card decks, and the higher you get, the harder it gets to balance the land and the creatures and everything else, and so then it costs more to either summon them, or you're drawing a bunch of land and not any creatures, you're drawing a lot of creatures and not any land, so it just makes it a little bit more difficult. Of course that can happen with 40 card decks too, because it all depends on the shoveling, but it's a lot rarer in smaller decks because you usually measure everything out. I got 1,000 plus Magic the Gathering cards today, and I just spent like 3 hours. I was watching Naruto at the same time I was doing it, but I spent like 3 hours just sorting them into their colors. I didn't even get some of them sorted into their colors because you can have cards like this where they cost a couple of different colors of land to summon, so basically they don't have just one color, so you can't sort them into that, so I put them in a category of all their own. These are called land cards or mana, depending on who you're talking to. Either both are the same. They say land on them, but then you call them mana because they are your payment for summoning creatures or spells like this. I have a lot of decks right here. This one is called my Rave deck. It is mostly made up of, I put them in card sleeves, gonna have to pull them out real quick. It is mostly, I believe it's all red and white cards, so fire and plains. And I do the red and white because it has, the white will give me life, and it also has a couple of like flying creatures that are good, and I call it's the Rave because it's an explosion deck. I give my decks names. I just didn't want to call it the explosion, but it's the Rave deck. I was originally going to name it after Hiro Mashima in the Rave series that he wrote. He wrote? No. Oh, shoot. Whatever the main character's name has, the Rave sword, and one of them is the explosion sword, and I was going to name it after that sword, but I couldn't remember what it was, so I just named it the Rave instead. This one is my Americano deck, which is made up of red, white, and blue cards. Go figure, the Americano. And there's some other stuff in here too that I really need to sort through. I don't have enough deck boxes currently. Then I have the Enchanted Forest, which is mostly made up of green cards, but it has white mixed in as well. And it's called the Enchanted Forest because I seem to have a lot of, it's a rather large deck, larger than it probably should be. But I really wanted to have a green deck, and then I had some green ones that I wanted to include that had white, so then I ended up making the mixture. And white is known for bringing life to the caster. Plains gives you a lot of life. The black as well, the swamps, can do the same, but it's not as common. And green, I've never found anything that's particularly huge that green does. Blue is known for a lot of power. Red is known for explosions and hefty damage. But green is just sort of there. That's my personal opinion. Someone else may think that green is the best color to play with, and I'm like, black and white, they're my favorite, to be honest. I really don't have a black and white deck though, and I don't know why. And then I have my flying deck laid out on my cedar chest over here. I can lift it up. I'm in the middle of playing a game with Caitlin. So that is our game currently. We've been Facebook messaging each other back and forth in order to play it. We're pitting our flying decks against each other. I had to go through like all my cards and find flying cards, and then build a deck based off of those. It was really difficult because I didn't have very many flying creatures, and I didn't want to tear apart any decks. Like this was one of the first decks I got, and so even though it's really bad and should never be played, I don't want to tear it apart because it got me into the world of Magic. You can also have these, and they're just, sometimes you have a creature that'll be like, put a tokens white spirit 1/1 creature on the field or whatever, and you have to find it. But a lot of people will just use the back of cards that come in the booster packs, or just the backs of cards from another deck, and just say this is a 1/1, and you can place like a counter on it, I guess, or something. But I just rather use my memory for that. And then this one specifically is a morph card. It's for creatures that can morph, and that's actually a really cool ability, because you have a card, and if it has a morph ability, you can place it down for less mana, and you place it down face down, and so then it becomes a 2/2 creature rather than what it fully can be. And then once you get enough, you can pay the morph cost and flip it over and play it for its full ability. And sometimes when you flip them over from morph, they have a special ability that they'll give you, which means it's good to play it in morph before flipping over to the real thing, even though it makes the creature often weaker than what it actually is. Let's see, which deck do I want to use to give an example to explain these cards? Alright, I'll use my Americano deck here, my red, white, and blue deck. So here is a blue land, which are known as islands. They have islands, plains, forests, mountains, and swamps, and those are the, goes to each color. Island to blue, forest to green, plain to white, swamp to black, and mountain to red. Then you have creatures, which is sort of like this guy. Often creatures will have certain abilities. Sometimes they don't. And this one, you can always tell how much it costs to summon the card up in this corner here. It should be the upper right hand corner. It tells you that you need 1 plains and 1 mana of any other color. So it doesn't matter what color you use. You can use 2 plains to summon, you can use a plain and a swamp, you can use a plain and an island, just as long as you have at least 1 plains and another mana, it's all good. And then you can check its health and power down in the lower right hand corner. And the first number is the power, the second number is the health. So he's a 1/3, which means when he attacks, he can only attack for 1 point of damage. And in order to kill it, you'd have to have something that has more than 3 damage power. This card is known as a creature. I don't know if I explained that. Creatures are what you use to attack other people. Sometimes instants or enchantments or sorceries can be used to injure the other player, but creatures are your best shot for that. The prowess on this card specifically is whenever you cast a spell that's not targeting a creature. So it has to be like a spell that will target another player, or will target an enchantment, or will target you getting to maybe draw a card. Just anything that doesn't target a creature specifically will give this creature +1/+1 till the end of the turn. So that would give it 2/4 on the bottom rather than 1/3. So it just increases its power and health. This creature is pretty cool. It takes 2 mountain and 2 of any other mana to do it. So basically 4 mana cost, and it's 4/3, so it has 4 power, 3 health. It's not the strongest creature out there, but it's one of the better ones to get out in the playing field, because then it has a little bit more leniency room. This is a plains. This is what a plains may look like. There's a few different options on those. This is a sorcery card. I love sorceries personally. I think they're so much better, but instants are really good to have in your hand too, because instants you can play in to counter your opponent. They're the only ones that can be played when it is not your turn, which is good when they have some pretty interesting spells. You can be like, I can counter that, mwahaha, and then You may not take any damage, or they'll take damage instead. This sorcery card takes 1 island and 1 mana of another color to summon, and the sorcery allows you to look at the top 5 cards of your library, and then you can put any number of them into your graveyard. So you can put them all into your graveyard, you can put 1 into your graveyard, you can put 0 into your graveyard, any one you want, any number you want into the graveyard, and then like after that you take the rest of them and you can shuffle them up, put them in order that you want. So let's say you want, I want this card next and then this card after this one. So you can make a little plan of the next 5 cards and put them back in that order on top of your drawing piles, and you know exactly what's going to happen, except for you don't know what the opponent has, which makes it difficult, because then they could have like something that will counter it or force you to put those cards into your graveyard, and then you're sort of screwed because your plan just went to pot. This creature, it only costs 1 island. He's a defending creature, and you can always tell who are defending creatures easily because they have 0 power, but they have usually a lot of health. The most common defending creatures are 0-5 or 0-4. This one happens to be a 0-3. But one good thing about him is if you take 1 green mana and 1 mana of another color and tap him, you can sacrifice this card, which means just putting it into your graveyard, and that allows you to search your library for a basic land card, which I've showed before, and then you put it onto the battlefield tapped, so you can't use it, but then on your next upkeep you'll be able to untap it and use it. So it allows you to basically put out more mana than you should. This personally is one of my favorite cards in the whole world. It is the Thousand Winds. I cannot remember for the life of me. I know it wasn't the most recent one. It's not like the Dragonkin one, but I think it's from the one before it when they did a lot of morph coming out for Magic. And it is a flying creature, and flying creatures can only be blocked by other flying creatures or by a creature with reach. So if you attack a person that doesn't have flying creatures without reach, they can't block it. And it can block theirs though if you need to, which is nice. But it deals a lot of damage. It's a 5/6. And it also has the morph ability, and the morph cost is actually more than the cost to summon, but it has a really cool morph ability. And the ability when it turns face up after the morph is that it will return all the other creatures the opponent has that are tapped, which means if they just attacked you with maybe say all their creatures or at least most of them, then it will return it to their owner's hands, so then they have to repay all the cost to put it back out, which is pretty sweet, I'd say. It's a really fun card because it's really strong and then it has like really cool abilities. That's another sorcery. Go through some of these. This is an instant. And instants are the ones that can be used when it is not your turn, which is really fun. This one particularly, it's called Cancel. It takes 2 island and 1 of another card to play it, which means you have to have that available on your opponent's turn in order to be able to counter their spell, but that's what it does, is it counters any target spell. So it'll counter a sorcery, an instant, or an enchantment, and it just cancels it out, which is nice. This creature, I want to explain this ability. It has hexproof, which means that your opponent can't cast any spells that would be able to like control it or anything like that. So the opponent can't use instants, enchantments, or sorceries on it. So it's almost makes it immortal, but not really, because it has really crappy health. But hexproof is pretty nice. Another sorcery. Now these lands are 2 different colors, which is really, really nice. When you first put it into the battlefield, you put it in tapped, like this. This is called tapped. I should probably really explain that. This is known as tap mode, and then when it enters the battlefield, it gives you 1 life. It's always good to get life in this game because you only have 20. With some of these creatures, anyway. And then whenever you tap it, it can either be a forest or an island, which is super nice. But 1 life, forest or island, it's fantastic. There are some of the newer ones. Artifacts. I love artifacts. These things, artifacts usually cost just 1 mana of any color. Sometimes 2, sometimes more. Most of the ones that I have only cost 1, which is really nice. And they're really cool. Like this one, if you pay 2 mana, just by tapping them, paying 2, you exile this artifact, which is sad because then you can never bring it back from the graveyard. But the target player shuffles his or her graveyard into the library, and then they draw a card, so it's good to use that against yourself because it can be any target player. So I wouldn't target an opponent and be like, you have to draw a card and shuffle in all your graveyard, because that would just give them the opportunity to become stronger than you, unless you're like playing tag team and then you have to figure out a way to destroy them. But use it on yourself, to be honest. And Lens of Clarity only costs 1. It's another really fun one. A lot of people like downgrade this card, and it makes me very sad because don't downgrade this card. It allows you to look at the top card of your library and at face down creatures that you don't control. So let's say someone has a lot of morph cards that they've played against you. Well, you play this thing and you can look at the top card of your library anytime you want, and then anytime you want you can also look at their morph cards, and you can decide, hey, if this person attacks with this one, I'm going to block with this one because then it will kill it, and then I'll get rid of it because it has this ability that if they were to unmorph it, it would be scary. Oh, now this one. This card has haste. Haste is, I love that ability, and especially, but it's a really low card, but haste is a really fantastic ability because whenever you play a creature, it has a thing called as known as summoning sickness, which means the first time you play it down, you can't attack with it unless it has haste. If it has haste, then it doesn't have summoning sickness, which is so good because then you can just attack with it. And if you get that in like a really good card where it's like really high power, your opponent's like, I'm screwed. It's really fun. Instance. I do not have any enchantments in this thing. I have some morph cards, which is pretty nice. Now this one, Mardu Horde Chief. I don't know my cards. He has Raid. And the thing about playing is you have an upkeep, which is really called your main stage, but it's basically an upkeep thing where you fix your board, untap everything, and then decide if you're going to play a land, if you're going to play a creature. And then you have the combat period where you attack the other player. And then you have another main phase. There's the second main phase. And in that second main phase, if you didn't play a land the first main phase, then you can play a land then, and you can also play cards afterwards so that maybe they're not put out on the board as sooner. Or in this guy's case, you'd want to play him in the second main phase, as when he first enters the battlefield, if you attacked with another creature that turn, which means in the combat phase just before it, you get to put a 1/1 white warrior creature onto the battlefield, and so that gives you one more thing to attack with on the next turn, or block with when you have someone that has like maybe a 5/6 and you don't want to sacrifice one of your high creatures. You just sacrifice the 1/1, and then unless it has trample, you won't take any damage. And trample just means that any damage that isn't blocked by the creature that blocked it will hit either the player, or if you have a second creature that decided to block it as well, it will carry on to that creature. Trample sucks. Let me put this back in my Americano box. So let's see if I can think of any other special abilities. Lifelink. Some creatures have lifelink. And lifelink is really fantastic for the person who controls it, not for the person who doesn't. But lifelink is whatever damage that creature inflicts on another creature or on target player, you gain that much life. So let's say your creature is a 2/4 with lifelink. If that creature attacks, and either if someone blocks it or if the player takes it, that person loses 2, but you gain 2 life, which is always good. Lifelink comes a lot in the white and black decks, so good to have those probably together. I should really find just a bunch of lifelink creatures. But, so yeah, explain flying and reach. Should probably show you how to play a game. Games they can be long or they can be short depending on how the cards end up playing out. I'm going to play my Enchanted Forest deck, which really shouldn't play against anything, but I'm going to play it against my Rave deck. Just for show here. Okay, so depending on how you want to shuffle, I don't really have enough room to do actual. I have really cool shuffle, but I don't have enough room to do it, so I'm just doing the lame kind of shuffling that I always make fun of people doing because it's the I want to protect my cards, they're gonna get destroyed shuffle. Yes, if you do this, I am making fun of you right now. They're just cards. Like, seriously. If you put them in card sleeves, they're gonna last. Who cares if they get a little bit and you can always bend them back? Like, really. I love the game, but they're just cards. At the end of the day, they're not what's the most important in the world. Okay. Enough with my mean ramblings towards people who may really like the shovel. Seriously, learn to shovel. Okay. I'm going to place that deck over here. And then I'm going to shuffle the other deck. Now, a lot of people will roll a dice, and you, like, whoever gets the highest roll, or there's, like, a bunch of different ways you can tell who goes first. I carry coins in my pocket a lot of times when I go to play games, because it's just easier to flip a coin. Place that deck over here. I'm going to do like a really short version of the game. We're not going to play the whole thing. I'm not even going to bother flipping a coin. So let's say the Rave deck person who I'm playing against won. They won the coin flip. They get to choose who goes first. Who to choose, and if you go first, you don't get to draw a card your first turn, and if you go second, you're going to draw a card your first turn. I've usually had more luck going second when winning. My friend and I have been playing, and she's been going first, and she keeps winning against me, except for I'm killing her in this flying round, so I'm so excited. You know I'm talking about you, Caitlin. But, yeah. So, they go first, and they draw 7 cards. You can only have 7 cards in your hand at a time. Otherwise, and if you end your turn with more than 7 cards, you have to discard them until you have 7. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Alright, so the first turn is usually played where you only get to play down a mana because you don't usually have enough mana to summon a card. Oh, I found an enchantment. I didn't have any enchantments in the other one. This is an enchantment which is used against the opponent. It's a pretty fantastic card. It's used to enchant the creature, only costs 1 plains, which is nice, but someone else would have to have a card in order to play it, so it's not going to be useful the first couple of rounds. And when it enchants the creature, the enchanted creature can't attack or block unless the controller of the creature pays 3 mana. So every time they want to attack or block with that creature, they have to pay 3 of their own mana, which then really drains their mana supply, especially if they're going to attack with it, because then they don't have anything to use when, like on instance. And the activated abilities of it, so like if you have a special ability, the card will cost 3 more to activate. really actually is terrible. Alright, so this first turn, I'm going to play down Plains. Well, at least the person with the red deck is going to play down a Plains, and then they say it's the other person's turn. And they already have 7 cards in their hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then they get to draw a card for their first turn. And they look through their hand, and they have the same enchantment. Look at that. And because it's... I don't know why there's so many white cards in this. For the Enchanted Forest. Who knows what I was thinking. They're going to play down a Plains. And they have exactly 7 cards. So they don't have to discard anything. And then it will go back to the other person because they can't play anything. So then the first opponent will draw their card for that turn. Oh, yay! I love this card. It's another enchantment, and the enchanted creature gets +2 and +2 and has protection from all colors. So it can't be blocked, targeted, or dealt damage by anything that's white, blue, black, red, or green. So it just basically makes the card pretty immortal, you could say. Unblockable. It's fantastic. I can't use it, but I love it. And so then, let's say they want to play down a mountains, and they have a creature that they'd like to play. The creature is a human soldier. It costs 1 point and 1 mana of any other color, and they have a mountain and a plains. So what they will do is they will turn them to the side like this on their board to say that they have been tapped and cannot be used until their next turn. And in the main phase, everything comes untapped again. And they will use that to summon this creature, who is a human soldier with 2/1. And because I don't control any islands, he doesn't get +1/+1 he doesn't get the +1/+1 ability, but he's more of a little youngling guy. He's sort of used to attack in the first stages when the other player can't play anything. So he's pretty cool for at least starting out, because he's low summoning cost. But right now he's summoning sickness, so the other person would be able to attack, so then they would say it's the other person's turn. Everything is falling over. So then the other person's turn, they draw a card. And they don't have anything else to play, so they play down a second Plains. And then let's say for the fun of it, they decide that they, for some reason, want to waste the Oppressive Rays enchantment on the Dauntless River Marshal. So they would tap a Plains, turn to the side, and place their enchantment under the opponent's. And so now the creature can't attack or block unless the opponent pays 3 mana, which I would use on higher up cards than that one, so that one's sort of lame to use it on. I wonder if I can... Nope, that's not going to work. It's going to shut my laptop if I try and show it. So we have that, and then it would go back to the other person's turn again. And they draw a card. And they play well, first they untap everything, which means you just bring it back up to top. That way they can use it, because it's the main phase. They want to play another mountain. I like to stack them on top of each other like this. It just seems much more organized to me to have all the same color stacked on top, and then you can just turn how many you want at the bottom, you know, whatever. Everybody plays differently. Some people like to have it really spread out. I'm like, how much space do you need? I need space, but not that much space. I usually do about, I've had like 10 stacked on top of each other, but after that it gets a little bit crowded. It's often smart just keep them in like piles of 5. And then if they tap all 3, mana, they can play out a Rummaging Goblin, which every time you tap it, you discard a card, and then you tap it. Okay, so if you activate its ability, you tap it, discard a card, and then you get to draw a card, which only I would use if you have a bunch of cards that you probably don't want. even unless you really want to draw a card. So they play out that one. So that has Summoning Sickness, and it would go to the other person's turn, and so on and so forth. But to speed this up, we'll say, just gonna throw out a bunch of mana on each of these and a couple of creatures. This is called cheating. These games can go on forever. Okay. The last person has a giant pile of plains and forest mana that I'm not even going to bother sorting through. And they also have a couple of cool creatures. Those are instants. Oh, here's a creature that we should throw out on the board. I'll say the other person hasn't been able to summon anything else, even though they probably should have been by this point. Or they've killed it by this point. Let's see, we put out that artifact. Okay, we'll call that good. So, the opponent, which is me technically, has played throughout the course of the game a legendary enchantment artifact. I love these things, I swear. The creatures that I control get +1/+1 for the entirety that is on the board. They can be destroyed by a couple different instants and sorceries and a couple other things, but generally these things will last. And if I tap it and play a mana cost, I can destroy a target creature that dealt me damage throughout the turn. But I'm guessing that none of them have. All my creatures get +1/+1, which means that my Hound right here is a 3/3. This one has Flying, Lifelink, and Heroic. And Heroic is whenever you cast a spell. It actually depends on the card. On some of them, like if it's a non-creature spell, it gets +1/+1. This one says that whenever you cast a spell that targets this card specifically, then it gets a +1/+1 counter. Is this one of my shiny cards? This is one of the, I'm thinking it's a foil card. And it's gold, so it's pretty cool. So that would make it a 3/5, which is really powerful. This one is now a 1/5, and you can tell it was originally a defense card because it has a 0/4 on the bottom, which means it's mainly defense, but whenever I cast a spell that targets it, gets +1/+1 counter. And then I have a creature with Flying and Double Strike. Double Strike is really fun, and so is First Strike. Those are other things I realized I forgot to tell you about. First Strike is where they attack with their power first. So then then the creature that blocked it has less health than the power that creature had, then it dies and doesn't get the chance to attack my creature, so my creature would live. Double Strike is where they get to attack first, and then if that attack still wasn't enough, they get to attack again, but the other creature still gets to deal damage to them. And this is a 2/2. It's not that strong, but with Double Strike, if you're going up, let's say, against a creature with 4 health, it would kill it, but it would also kill the other creature. So this one would sadly die, but it's pretty fun. Also has Flying, so only creatures with Flying or reach can block it, which is good for attacking. And so they have all these creatures on the board, and they want to attack with all of them. So they would tap the creatures, which means turning it this way, how you attack with something. Anytime you want to use something, you just tap it. easiest part of the game to understand, I'd say. And so they tap everything. The other person has, say, 10 health left. They don't have any way of blocking anything because their other creatures were tapped because they chose to attack with it. Even though the other person probably would have attacked. When you have creatures on the field and they have creatures on the field and theirs are untapped and you tap all yours to attack it, you better be winning. Otherwise, you're sort of screwed yourself over. So they have 10 life. They're getting attacked with 3, 6, 7, 10, and they don't have any way to block, so then they would die. And one of my favorite things to do in order to keep track of life, I sort all my cards back out so they don't get mixed up with each other. My precious decks. On here, on like your phones and stuff, with the technology-driven world, you can have apps. Lovely, lovely apps. My favorite apps is I have a Life Total Magic the Gathering app, powered by Unity. If it will come up. It automatically starts you out at 2020. You can add life by clicking the plus, or you can subtract life by clicking the minus. And immediately when someone gets down to 0, I'll show you what happens. It will do that in the middle, and that means that someone's won and you can restart the game. It also has like how much life you start out with, which to be honest you shouldn't be starting out with 120. It has a settings that I never really play around with, and it also has a dice app that will allow you to tell who goes first, and this person would go first. And also outside of this, it has these buttons here, and it allows you to choose poison. I still can't figure out the poison thing. I haven't had creatures with poison, so if anybody would like to explain to me in the comments what poison creatures do, please explain. I'm sure everyone would appreciate it. You can change the color of it based on maybe what deck you're playing with. So if you're playing with a Plains deck, you can change it to white, or you can have a blue, or black, or red, or green. And you can basically play with a fun color against your opponents, and you can have fun with it. And say black against blue, and for some reason that person now has 20 life. Switching around. And you can change the colors. It's pretty fun. I really like this app. You can also keep track with paper and pencil or in your brain. So much easier to do with an app, personally. But that is a basic rundown of Magic the Gathering. I first learned about the game in a statistics class when we had to do like a huge project, and they did their statistics project show thing on Magic the Gathering. And I was like, that looks like a fun game. And so then I ended up finding some people in my school library that played it, and they let me play with their decks when I was learning, and then it all spiraled from there. And now I play Magic the Gathering, and I need to go to another tournament. It's a lot of fun going to tournaments. I like going to the ones on Wednesday nights at my Game Haven, my local Game Haven, because it's $14. But you get a deck, you build a deck there, and then when you win, you get more free decks. And Saturdays is like freebie night, but then you get all the people that are going to be playing that like have super strong decks and are really smart at playing. And if you're a beginner, like I still sort of am, scares me. I don't want to play against those people. I don't want to be destroyed, ruthlessly murdered. Seriously, those guys do not hold back. Which you shouldn't when playing this game. Never hold back just because they're your friend. Never, never hold back. It's not good to hold back. And so, hope you maybe understand Magic the Gathering a little bit more. Maybe you've taken an interest in playing the game. Whatever you may think, shoot me a comment down below. Maybe I'll do some more tutorials in the future. But that's about it. Thanks.